Today, I am happy to have a Zoom conversation with Dan Hook, a member of the Frankfurt congregation and the chairperson of the Finance Committee. This is all part of our virtual Advent calendar experience that we're doing for this month of December. So, hi Dan, welcome.
Well, good morning there, Pastor Penny.
How you doing?
I'm doing okay. Treatments are done. I'll be doing some physical therapy right now. They're just kind of monitoring how I'm doing and checking labs and that kind of stuff. But,
sure.
And then, yeah, next week I start some outpatient PT to try to work on my mobility a little bit more. I couldn't do that when I was going through treatment. So, but I'm doing better, and I'm appreciating all of the phone calls that I'm still getting and the cards and the
Excellent.
tests. So that is really helpful, really helpful.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Now, most people know that we've been working on the budget for 2021.
Oh, yeah.
And part of that process is reviewing our expenses for 2020. When you compare what we budgeted to spend, how does that compare with what we've actually spent in 2020?
Okay, well, this has been a very interesting year in a lot of ways. But we actually budgeted about $205,000 in expenses for 2020. We did a projection. That's part of what we do for our budget. We projected we'll probably end up spending around 160. Okay, so we'll end up spending about 45,000 less than what we thought we were going to spend. Okay, now that's, we were without a pastor for several months. That's part of it. We were without a church service for quite a while, and so our utilities were down. And trustees did a good job of controlling costs and reducing costs on things like telephone and internet. So our costs, they were able to keep the costs down. So that worked out good.
Very good, very good. Probably just as important for folks to know is how much money did we estimate we would have come in for 2020, and then how much did we actually receive? I guess what I'm asking is, are we maybe running at a deficit of some sort?
Right. Well, that's really the key question here. I'll get to the deficit in a second, but it's kind of interesting that it worked out, because we budgeted our total income of about $195,000, okay, for 2020. We estimate, and this is where the tricky part is, the estimate for this year. Right now, it looks like we'll end up getting about 150. So there again, another 45. We're 45 less in income than we thought. So, on the expense side, we spent 45 less than we thought. We took in 45 less than we thought. You would think, okay, well, that's good. The reality is that we actually budgeted about a $10,000 shortfall for this year. Partly, this was of course done a year ago. We were anticipating that there could be about a $10,000 grace that the conference was going to give us in our apportionments because of situations in the change of ministers. Well, that situation didn't work out. It had something to do with health insurance. That didn't work out. So we probably will end up with something short of about a 10,000 deficit for this year, but that really depends on what we receive for the last 2 months, because all of these numbers were based on actual through October.
Okay.
So we'll see. We'll see how it ends up for the year. So I don't think we're going to break even, but I've been surprised before, so pleasantly and unpleasantly.
So then the budget process for planning for 2021, in light of the fact that we're still in the middle of a COVID pandemic, and currently having the services outside the church, doing them virtual, there's so much in the air. It must have really been a challenge putting together a crystal ball budget for 2021.
Well, yeah, it was and it still is, because we're still in that process
Mhm.
of doing the budget. You know, at our last finance meeting, when we first started putting the numbers in, the amount of requests, and then we tried to estimate what our income would be. And of course, that's the real trick. We started out, well, we've got a deficit here of about $35,000. So, you know, we started doing some cutting here and there. I mean, it's kind of hard to cut that much. We did get that down to about 27. That's the budget that we presented to the council. And our plan is, because what happens in November and December, this being such a different year in terms of income, we're going to see where we are at the end of December in terms of income. That might help us focus a little more, because what we did on anticipating income for next year, we looked at, okay, where are we now this year in contribution income, which is really the largest segment of income, the amount that people give. That was down about 17% through October from last year. Okay, so to be conservative, we said, well, then when we project, we'd better project a reduction of 17% of what we ended up getting last year. And so that's the number that we used. We're going to hold off. We'll meet in January once we get our numbers for the rest for the complete year. And we'll see, we'll probably have to do some more cutting, but we wanted to quantify that more once we could kind of get a little better idea, sharper pencil on what our income, particularly the contribution income, was going to be for this year. So yeah, it's a challenge. And now we did get pledges, of course. We went through that. Our pledges were down a little bit, a few $1,000s from last year. But the real kicker there is that, you know, for many reasons, not everybody pledges. There are people who give substantially but don't pledge.
Right.
And so we always, every year, have to kind of estimate, well, what's that number going to be? And the name we put behind that number is our faith factor.
Right. You know, and I think that's important to remember, that there is a faith factor that goes in throughout all of what we do, whether it's the budgeting or our services, our mission outreach. That's who we are. There's got to be a faith factor in there.
Yeah. Well, most times when you're putting a budget together, you call it the fudge factor, but we're calling it the faith factor.
Yeah, faith factor sounds a lot better. Thanks.
It's a little bit more appropriate. So, so that's it. It's an ongoing process, and you know, it could well be that we'll start with something at the first of the year and see how we go a few months into the year, and then maybe have to make some more adjustments, because we don't know when we're going to be able to go back to live services, and that's having an impact. It really.
It is, especially like when you look at things like the mission offering, that loose offering that we would normally have in our church services, in sanctuary church services, and there are no loose offerings when you don't have a service.
No, you know, and mission giving is really kind of interesting. When we first moved here, the churches that we'd come from, missions had always been a line item in the budget. Okay, so you know, you sit down, finance committee says, well, we're going to give this much to mission, and then missions committee says, well, this is where it's going, and so forth. And so when we came here and I saw the system, which is basically passing the plate amongst we the people while we're in church, and the people decide how much goes to the mission of the month in the wicker basket. And at first I thought, oh boy, how's that going to work? But it has worked very well. It puts the decision too of how much is going to go to this mission and that mission in the hands of the people rather than just in the hands of the council.
That's true. That's true.
So that, I mean, it works good unless we, the people, are not there.
Right. But, and that doesn't preclude us from maybe trying to be creative in how we put together missions in 2021. You
Well,
know,
right. That's true. There, and if trying to work it into a budget where we're already starting with a 30,000 deficit might be difficult.
Yeah.
But I guess our presumption is that we're not always going to be living under these circumstances. And I know there are people that are sending money in. They're knowing that, you know, they can't get their hands on the wicker basket, but they can send a check.
Good.
We still have mission of the month, and it can go for those purposes. So, you know, we all have to be a little bit more creative sometimes in these times. And no, that's just the way that it's working out.
So we're going to be sending out our annual Christmas letter sometime next week. And I know we'll be asking people to remember they can still send in their 2020 offerings before December 31st and have it counted for 2020, right?
Yep, exactly.
Good, good.
Yep, that's and that's part of what we're hoping. You know, we're not quite sure why that 17% exists. We know that some people have left, and we know that maybe some people not being there have not been keeping up, and some people cannot keep up, and we understand that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there will be the an envelope in the mailing too, and that envelope, the finance committee had decided, well, this year we came up a little bit short on our commitment to the Wesley House down at Ferris State. We support the student ministry down there with a commitment of $1,000, and that was a mission of the month. I don't recall which month it was, but we raised only about 700 instead of 1,000. So we said, well, this year maybe what we should do is for the Christmas offering, finish out that obligation, whatever we need to finish out that $1,000 obligation. And then really, because of the situation we're in with our deficit, maybe we should do like we've done in years past when things were really tight, and use the Christmas offering for our general fund. It's not quite as much fun, and you know, it may not be quite as motivating, but it's going to help us keep the heat on and the lights on.
Right, and so that hopefully when we get back to having services, normal services, we can be able to afford them as well.
Yes, right. So that's the plan. That's what will be in the mailing, and yes, we'll be asking for people to kind of take a look at where they stand on what their commitment was for this year, and if they're able to finish it out or do more, that would be great.
Yeah. Well, Dan, I really appreciate you taking the time today to talk about this, and it's good to learn that you are doing better and that good enough to be able to stay on top of these finance issues and budget issues. And we so appreciate the work that you've done and continue to do for us and for God. As this is hardly kind of hasn't really been much of a Christmassy Advent calendar message. So if you haven't, do you have any particular Christmas message you want to send out to the churches this morning?
Well, I think the only message is that we all, you know, we miss the chance of being together, but we know that if we do that, we risk, there are risks associated with that. And it's just going to be a very different Christmas season. And a lot of our Christmas wishes are going to have to be in this method, through Zoom and other ways. But we'll just kind of look forward to next year and making up for it.
Yep. Well, Dan, God bless you and your family during this blessed holiday season. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Pastor Penny. Appreciate the chance to chat.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.